The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Listen only. Sharing. Everybody's muted. Screen is showing. Recording has started. Let's get going. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Consultant Roundtable. Thank you for joining us today. And most importantly, thank you for sharing the Consultant Roundtable with your team and your colleagues. If there is someone you would be included, would want to be included in the invites, please let us know in the chat or by the email after. If you guys don't know who I am, my name is Scott Whitney. I'm a principal consultant with the North American Center of Excellence. Along with my colleagues today are going to be Clark Haskins and Jason King, as well as some other folks that have attended. I trust everyone can see my screen, so we're going to get going. Agenda for today is going to be, we're going to introduce the Consulting Toolbox. So Clark's going to take us through a couple of things that we've learned over the past couple of years and want to introduce to you guys. We're going to talk about asking questions, specifically around that Consulting Toolbox. We have a nice video provided by Urzi with Sage City, talking about navigation and X3 resources. As always, we'll cover a little bit from Sage University and talk about the upcoming session. Clark, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Scott. So hello, everyone. My name is Clark Haskins. I'm a principal consultant with the North American Center of Excellence, for those that don't know me, and welcome. So Consulting Toolbox, you know, we're so excited and grateful for this, for the success and the great feedback, the attendance of the Consultant Roundtable. We have a quest for continuous improvement. We want to add a new segment to the Consultant Roundtable each month. This is the Consultant Toolbox. Next slide, Scott. Perfect. So the idea behind this is that performing our roles goes well beyond our X3 knowledge. It involves developing our soft skills and other areas beyond just X3. The idea with the Consulting Toolbox is this will be a small segment of the roundtable where we'll provide tips, thoughts, and ideas support you in your role beyond X3. Now, today's section will be talking about soft skills, just one of the soft skills, and the Consulting Toolbox isn't intended to take as much time as today's session will. It's just going to be a small little tidbit while we focus on all that's X3 for much of the segments, but we just wanted to introduce this today, and you'll see different segments going forward. Next slide, please, Scott. Asking questions. Now, today I'm going to talk about the power of asking questions. Now, the use of questions can be a very, very powerful tool, and we want to talk about how we can use that within our roles. Next slide, Scott, thanks. Now, sometimes the use of questions are overlooked, underused, and even avoided. And in this segment, we'll talk about why and how we want to use questions. Now, what are some of the reasons why we might avoid asking questions? Well, one, by our nature as consultants, we might be a little bit eager to impress others with our ideas and thoughts. This might come from a positive place in that we have so much to offer. We're so excited to be a part of the project and cannot wait to show our customer how we can help them. This may also come from a place of fear or anxiety. You know, the customer's paying a lot of money, and I've got to be sure I'm showing them value immediately. Our other concern is asking questions may show that we look bad or we're in fact incompetent. But maybe by asking a question, you think that the perception is you don't know what you're talking about, therefore you must ask a question. Another reason why we may not ask question is simple apathy. We don't care enough. And while the don't care enough may be a bit harsh, but we accept what's given on the surface and just don't choose to go deeper. Sometimes this can happen because we don't know to ask, and other times it can happen because when we have a lot of experience, have been on a number of projects, We may be a little less enthusiastic with presented with the same issues, or we may already know. And then the next part is we anticipate being bored by the answers. Similar in that, if we're working from our scoping document, we're asking the same question with every customer. I typically get that same answer, so I can just assume it's going to be the same here. Next slide, please, Scott.
Yeah, sure. Hey, Clark, your microphone died just a little bit there. We can barely hear you, bud.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
I'm just going to switch right over. Just be a second. This better?
Yeah, that's much better. Thanks, Clark.
Perfect, thank you. Some people may have been, Scott, why'd you do that? We didn't have to hear him.
Valuable info.
So this slide here, I don't know about you, but this persona we see in this image has been at almost all of the projects I've been on. We show up, they're sitting at the table, arms crossed. We know they're busy. They've got a lot going on in their department, and the idea of implementing new software is the last thing they want. Things this persona may be thinking when we're in the room is why are we doing this? I've got work to do. What does this person, being us, know? And I'm not changing what we do here. What we do works, and don't make me change it. And there might be a few other things that I probably don't want to say in a recorded webinar, but you get the idea, just the thought of this person as we enter the room initially or during a training session or any of our scoping. Next slide, Scott. Thanks. So in the article, The Surprising Power of Questions from the Harvard Business Review, it states that dating back to the 70s, research suggests that people had conversations to accomplish some combination of two major goals: an information exchange, or a learning, and impression management, liking. Now, recent research shows that asking questions achieves both. In fact, asking a lot of questions unlocks learning and improves interpersonal bonding. And when we think about what our role is, isn't that what we're trying to accomplish when we're at a customer? We want to learn about the customer as it relates to their implementation configuration of X3. We probably want to learn about opportunities where we can show how to leverage X3 to gain efficiencies and improvement, that add value. We want to learn about us individually, taking the opportunity to learn about different businesses, industries, and their processes are going to help us as we grow in our consulting career and with future projects. And we also may want to uncover group dynamics to learn how to better position our solutions as we go forward. Now, beyond that, we want to connect with the various stakeholders. We want to establish rapport, demonstrate that we're interested in them and their business. And we want to show that we recognize that their business is different and requires something other than a cookie cutter solution. You know how we always hear, our business isn't like the others you work with. We're different, and we're very unique. So they want us to recognize that. And the other thing is to establish trust, which is a key element of change management. So going back to the quote from the article, the learning and the liking are things that question gives the opportunity to take advantage of. Next slide, Scott, please. Now, in another article from Harvard Business Review, The Art of Asking Great Questions, the author identifies 3 benefits of asking great questions. Now, a great question demonstrates that you're thoroughly prepared for the challenge. A great question illustrates the expertise you bring to the table without showing it off, which is really key in our role, because that persona we saw before, he's expecting us to walk in, he or she is expecting us to walk in and tell them what they need to do. And whereas the approach of a question, we're actually not taking it, but we're accomplishing what we need to within our role. The other is a great question invites others to deepen or broaden their thinking and challenge beliefs. And what's key about this is that getting engagement from our customers, and everybody on that project team, the core team, is critical in our role. Change management requires people to think differently and consider other possibilities. By introducing questions early on, and it be less us telling them what needs to be done and more us asking questions, we engage them early in the process, we get them thinking, we broaden their thinking, and we have the opportunity to challenge their beliefs through questions rather than through instruction. Now, these are really great points, and I have to be honest with you. When I read this first, I got stuck on the great. So to me, if I'm reading, I need to a great question. Well, that likely means that I better rehearse, and where am I going to get these questions? And holy cow, how do I ask a great question? But as we go through the article, and phrase the question perfectly. But as I went through the article, it really just gets to the point of just ask questions. The article mentions more, the more questions you ask, the better you're going to get at asking questions. So ignore that great question in each of those points, but it's just about asking. Next slide, please, Scott. Now, why? Why should we ask more questions? An article in Inc. magazine states that one of the reasons to ask more questions is avoid assumption by clarifying. People tend to make assumptions and complete any missing part themselves, especially with our experience, things that we've seen before. For me personally, when I look back on a project and identify mistakes I've made, that's typically come down to I've made an assumption where I should have asked a question. In fact, earlier in my career with another software company, I was assigned to an in-flight project where the customer was a supplier that I had worked with in a previous life. I knew their business, I knew their product line, and I figured I knew everything I needed to know without asking questions. Luckily, I caught myself early on before they caught me making mistakes. But I went down that path of making assumptions because I thought I knew, and I could have put that project sideways. Another reason why we want to ask questions is we want to explore a greater understanding. Basically, sometimes we just need more information. We just need to somebody to clarify. And so questions are a great tool for that. Questions also help us analyze the root of the problem, understanding what's causing the issue. Another reason is finding the bigger picture. For example, a customer might state, one of their biggest challenges and problems is that their suppliers are always late on deliveries. On the surface, that sounds like, a procurement problem, a relationship problem, something with the suppliers. But as we start digging into that, we may find that maybe they don't manage lead times within their system. That's both on the supplier side and the customer side. Maybe all of their orders are rushed and the supplier standard delivery cycles can't get product to them when they need that. Maybe their inventory management has challenges there. Maybe their BOMs are incorrect. There's lots of reasons. But if we just left it with the suppliers are always late on deliveries and that's the problem, we actually aren't able to, number 3, analyze the root of the problem, and number 4, look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture in this case, process. There certainly may be process challenges. Next slide, Scott. Now, when we're asking questions, we need to consider a few important points. First, we need to be thoughtful. We want to create a comfortable environment for the people so that the people we're talking to feel free to talk. We don't want to come across, we want to be empathetic. We don't want to come across, for lack of a better word, as a jerk. We want to reflect on the other person's position in that we don't want to embarrass anybody. What we're asking may be a pain point. In fact, the person we're asking that pain point may be their responsibility that they haven't resolved. There may be a lot of pressure specific to that pain point. So we have to reflect on that and understand that. We also need to explain why we're asking. Give them context to the questions. It's so key in getting the answers that we're looking for. Next slide, Scott. So a post on the site, Consultant Mind, covers tactics to consider. One of the tactics is a follow-up question. And this is a type of question that may solicit more information and demonstrates that you're engaged. That demonstrates that you're truly interested in their process and helps peel back the layers of the proverbial onion. Research shows that follow-up questions demonstrates that a person is respected and heard. For us, one of the key roles, going back to an earlier point, is follow-up questions do not require a lot of preparation either. We kind of don't have to plan for them. We just want to be prepared in terms of asking who, what, where, why. We want to know when to ask open questions. Open questions meaning, can you define your process? Or any idea where we're not getting a simple yes, no response. It helps us get to the hidden, unexpected answer. What's the biggest challenge of your process is an open-ended question. What's the biggest challenge within your department? We want to use the right tone. Think of the difference of why do you do that versus this is an interesting approach. Why do you follow that process? That tone certainly implies something. And for me, I've been guilty with using wrong tone. And when I'm asking questions and I'm hearing, I actually get enthusiastic about the next question or what I'm going to uncover. And what I've done is I've actually I would create customer expectations during my introduction in which I would let them know that when I'm questioning, the purpose of my questions are to gain a better understanding, and sometimes I do get a little enthusiastic. Note that when I ask why or ask a question, I am never questioning you as an individual. I'm just questioning on the topic. That helped me, one, be aware of my tone, and two, set that customer expectation that what my intent was by asking all the questions. Asking questions gives you an opportunity to understand the group dynamics, and this is really, really key. The willingness to answer questions might be affected by the presence of others in the room. You may find that one person is answering all of the questions for areas that they're not responsible, and in which case you would want to engage the person responsible. So for example, the controller may be responding to questions related to inventory processes, and thereby the operations team is letting the controller take that piece, but it's the operations team that's also involved in the inventory process. So we want to focus the question and involve them and get their feedback. The other part of that dynamics is when you see someone answering a question and they're looking at another member of their team when they're giving their response, they're either A, looking for approval, or they're lacking confidence. And understanding that dynamics are going to help as you go forward in the project. The other tactic is ensure you've got the sequence of your questions right. What we mean here is that, Sometimes we want to lead our questions along to get to the information. You know, if we want to find out about inventory accuracy, do we start with, you know, are your inventory counts accurate? Or do we start with, do you have an inventory count process? We're going to talk more about that in a few minutes. Next slide, Scott. Our biggest challenge. Once we ask the question, we need to be quiet. You know, for some of you, this might be the hardest part of our role, staying quiet. But we need to be quiet to give them time to think. We need to give them time to respond. We also do not want to interrupt. Sometimes our enthusiasm is such that they start telling us something and they're like, yeah, we know X3 can fix that problem before we even let them finish. Next slide, please, Scott. Now, questions are only effective if we're listening. This is kind of a whole topic on its own, but that little voice in the back of my head said that if we were going to talk about questions, we needed to talk about our role after we ask the questions. So I wanted to just give you a review of steps to active listening. Step 1 is to face the speaker and maintain eye contact. And yeah, I know this might be hard when we're making notes, when we're typing. And so this doesn't have to be 100% eye contact, but we at the very least want to be looking at them, looking at the person speaking to show them respect. The other part is we want to be attentive to their answers. We want to be relaxed. We also want to keep an open mind in terms of just listen to what they're saying, and what they start with may not be what they end with. So let's keep an open mind the whole time to get the whole picture. We want to listen to the words and try to picture what the speaker's saying. And this is really key from an active listening perspective, and how that applies to our role is sometimes, especially I found this when working remote on projects versus in person, is that a plant tour, a facility tour helps with that picture. So asking for that, arranging for that in advance helps to create that picture when somebody's speaking, so you at the very least have a better understanding of what it is they're trying to tell you, because you have that visual. We talked about interruptions, so we don't want to interrupt and we don't want to impose our solutions. We need to put the brakes on solutioning and get back to that in due time. The other part is wait for the speaker to pause before we ask that clarifying question. Again, you know, make sure the reins are on before we jump in again. We want to ask questions only to ensure understanding. I found this interesting. We're talking about listening and it's telling us to ask questions. Like I thought it's like I said, it's kind of a circle. One helps the other. The other part is try to feel what the speaker's feeling. We talked about empathy in the other slide. Give the speaker regular feedback. And this could be, you know, head nods, you know, commenting, you know, right, that understand. The other part is, you know, active listening involves paying attention to what isn't said, the nonverbal clues. Or it could be, I've got cues, could be clues too. That's example I gave you where when somebody speaks, they're looking at somebody else other than you in the room. So just that helps you pick up on something. So if somebody's looking at something else, you can seek clarification, you can involve them in the question. But the key is, if we're active listening, is we need to summarize frequently. Now, I got this from an article in Forbes on 10 steps to effective listening. Next slide, please, Scott. Quotes. So again, some of the more brilliant men in history, brilliant people in history, my apologies, you have great quotes. Albert Einstein said, question everything. Napoleon said, "Why and how are words so important? They cannot be used too often." My favorite is from Malcolm Forbes, the original publisher and founder of Forbes magazine. "The smart ones ask when they don't know, and sometimes when they do." Rudyard Kipling stated, "I had 6 honest serving men that taught me all I know. Their names were where and what and when and why and how and who." Just a couple to consider, a couple quotes to consider. Next slide, please, Scott. And so I missed one. So, you know, by our nature and everything we've done in the Consultant Roundtable involves a demo. So Scott and I are going to do a demo by role playing. Are you set, Scott?
Ready to go.
Perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an example from scoping. We're going to pick a very simple topic. We're going to talk about inventory count process. And it isn't to perform, it isn't to demonstrate what you should be doing when you're scoping about inventory process, where it's just to discuss different scenarios that can happen when we're scoping on such a topic. So Scott's going to play the role of my facilities manager, inventory control operations. I'm going to be the Sage consultant. So Sage consultant Clark says, "Do you perform regular inventory counts?"
We do. We count every week.
To myself, as I'm making my notes, I say, "Oh, this is good news. They have good process in place." Ready for the next question. There's scenario number 1. Scenario number 2. Do you perform regular inventory counts?
We do. We count every week.
So now more of a general question. How does your count process look like?
So each week we count a different section of the warehouse. We print off count sheets in the morning. Count sheets are then assigned and counters are assigned a section, and then they return the count sheets. Once we get those back, we get those entered, and then we review our variances.
Oh, good. That's interesting. Do you count each product in that section?
We do.
From here, I'm able to note the opportunity. So this is me making notes, not me talking to Scott. The opportunity to discuss the use of ABC class in stock counting, whether that's through the cycle count process or just using ABC in terms of sorting my counts, and then note the opportunity to use mobile automation. So you see the difference between scenario 1 and scenario 2. I'm able to identify, get more information in terms of how we're going to recommend X3 be used for their stock counting process. Let's look at a third scenario. Scott, do you perform regular inventory counts?
We do. We count every week.
Oh, very good. Stock counts can involve a lot of resources. Why do you count weekly?
Our stock quantities are always way off. Our variances are large.
Oh, really? Have you been able to get to the root cause of those discrepancies?
Yeah, our stock quantities are off mainly because of scrap. We have a lot of issues with scrap that aren't accounted for.
Perfect. Oh, thank you. So here, stepping out of role, here I'm saying to myself, jackpot, we've got an issue with scrap. So now I would begin digging deeper to understand where the scrap it may be, whether it's within their BOM. Is it a process-related scrap? Is it has to do with tracking, what that is? But by asking that question versus the first, enthusiastic Clark who was like, perfect, they do stock counts, and now I know I have to train that. We're able to uncover more of how we need to, the use of questions, just gets deeper and helps identify areas to use our software. So again, we were using that scenario of inventory counts not to demonstrate what, what questions to use, but just different information we can get from questionings. Great, Scott. Thank you. Good job.
Welcome. Thanks. All right. Thanks, Clark. Thanks for all that good info. Some couple of questions coming in. Mainly thanks for putting together a nice little session on questions and a good start to our consulting toolbox.
Great.
So one of the things that that we're excited to show you today is some insight on Sage City resources. So we're going to hear from Urji Istaturis. She is our community and country lead for Sage City in North America. She's provided us with a video outlining some of the great Sage City resources and content for Sage X3. So I'll go ahead and share that now. Get Sage City resources. You guys go ahead and tell me if you can see the video.
Got it, Scott.
We'll review resources for X3, Sage X3 on our Sage City community. In the following, we'll review what Sage City
Awesome. So as you saw, we got some great information from Urgi. It was really cool, interesting stuff. Some of the things that we wanted to really highlight, which are really beneficial, that we found, are the product blogs. So as Urgi showed you, you do have the ability, once you log into your Sage X3 and from Sage City, we're clicking on product blogs. From there, we get to dive in to the specific setting. You can bookmark the blog, you can turn blog notifications on or off. And then once you click on a specific topic, you can actually like or get more information on that specific blog by bookmarking the blog post or the blog itself. There's a lot of great information. As you can see, the general parameters for CTL, CLE, there's trial kitting, all kinds of great information. And we have some great folks with Chris Hahn and Joel Singham, Pam Nightingale. They're doing a tremendous job of giving us information and making that available for us around all kinds of topics in X3. So what's new? As we talked about last month when we had the release of 2023 R1, all those new features are out there. We wanted to keep those up to date and forefront for you. And if you have any questions about any of those, please let us know. The other topic that we have is taking a look, if you recall, in April's Roundtable, Lydia from our Central Center of Excellence team introduced us to the Central Center of Excellence Enhanced Package. This is a pre-configured X3 environment that they provide, which includes global partners by the likes of SCI and web scheduling, just to name a few. So that session was held on June 14th, and she's prepared a presentation for us that is linked for you. So the reminder that there is a handout attached to the Roundtable webinar outlining that enhanced package presentation. If you can't access that, please let us know. The other thing just wanted to remind you of is our expert services page on the Sage Partner Hub. So once you get into that, you can take a look under the sales block. You will find our expert services and everything that we've done for you related to Sage X3. Things like the customization library, service bundles, migration paths to Sage X3 with our data migration tool, and anything that we have listed out there for the Consultant Roundtable as well. All good stuff for you guys to access. Let's go over Sage University stuff. We do want to keep in forefront is the Partner Learning Program. It's including the core training, any additional learning, advanced learning, and even the stream subscription, access to the stream methodology toolkit, all available for you in the Partner Learning Program. As always, we'll bring up some Knowledge Bite sessions coming up in July, August, and September. So we got some good workflow notifications actually next week. So if you have not signed up for that, please do so through Sage University. Some good financial stuff coming up there, advanced workflows, metadata dictionaries, and getting into stock replenishment, SQL queries, and managing leads and prospects. All come up through July, August, and September. Expert workshops, expert classes, the advanced user classes are all with prerequisites of base X3 knowledge. A lot of those are geared toward more advanced processing functionality within X3. Most come with business cases and exercises that we go through real world examples. Recall, looking at expert services or expert workshops throughout Sage University, just search on Sage X3 Expert, whether that's at the global setting or in the calendar itself. So taking a look at a couple of our functions, project management, we've got 2 expert workshops coming up. One's in July, covering your best practices for managing your X3 solution. That's in July. And then again, project management implementation best practices in September. So that runs from Friday to Friday, the week of the 22nd down through the 29th. Financials, jam-packed sessions coming up in the next couple of months. You might want to take a look at those. It's all great information to have. Some of those are repeater classes from earlier months. If you couldn't get in, you can get in coming up soon. Distribution manufacturing, we got one coming up next week. Implementing warehouse management with Julian. That is the scheduled class. That's we do have some good participants in there, so we're looking really forward to taking that class. And then implementing MRP coming up in July. For technical classes, we have quite a few coming up. We have one next week related to ATP. So if you recall us going through that last month with Jason Holstrom, his class is coming up June 19th and 21st. You might want to get out to Sage City Sage University and get that stuff, get registered for that class today. And then a few others coming up between July, August, and September. Some Sage ISV training. So if you recall, we talked about some procession training that's coming up with quality control in July, again in October, and then the procession formulation module in August. So all good stuff coming from our friends at Procession. Okay. Upcoming stuff, future topics and feedback. Always looking for your feedback. We definitely want to put ourselves in a position to service you as our customers. That way you can better serve your customers. So we want your feedback. So we're always set up to provide a forum to share and grow just not only our X3 knowledge and practices, but we have a need for you to provide us with some insight into what you want to hear and see. With that, our next roundtable session is Friday, July 21st. As always, 8 o'clock Pacific and 11 a.m. Eastern. You can look for your invitation from the channel communications email, or you can sign up at the Sage Partner Hub. So sign up for today's class or for next month's class and future classes, but those have to be done individually. And then lastly, our survey question for this month is, did you attend or have you heard of anything related to Sage X3 that you would like us to expand on future CRT sessions? So specifically, if you attended Summit or if any of your colleagues attended Sage Summit, we'd love to hear any great feedback that you might have related to X3 or any functions that you might want us to navigate through in the next couple CRT sessions. With that, I want to thank everybody for your attention today and for coming out and being with us. Look forward to next month's topics, and we'll see you soon.